Nothing is too difficult for God. Prayer and meditation will get you over the hill. Prayer and meditation will allow you to hear God's voice speaking to you. With God, all things are possible. I've proved it, the world proves it, and you can prove it. God bless you. Thank you for telling me. I forgot all about that thing.
Marcella Lundgren is next, friends. The title of her Bible series, Free at Last.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's still morning, and I'm delighted that it is because I love to greet people in the morning. Today we're going to start out on an adventure through a series of lessons taken from, or using as the basis of the lessons, the 15th chapter of Luke, the 11th to the 32nd verses, which are the story of the prodigal son. I hesitate calling this the prodigal son story because the story is so rich with other characters, and there's so much going on in this story except the waster, or the spending of money foolishly. For our first lesson, we're going to talk about freedom. We're going to talk about what makes you free. One thing that'll make you free. And then the second lesson is going to be about emotions and what this story tells us about emotions and how important our emotions are. The third story will be that ever-present prosperity lesson that we like to include in every one of our talks, in every one of our series. And the fourth lesson is going to be a sharing with you of the things that I have learned in trying to put together a sort of a packet about what the prodigal son story teaches us, because there are so many articles written in the Unity publications about the prodigal son, and each one of them has just a little bit of a different color, a little different lesson to teach. And you'd be surprised how many things there are in this story. I'm not going to tell the story in its entirety to begin with, because as I go through these lessons, I'm going to probably go through the same story over and over again, showing where the lessons lie in the story. But it is a story about two young men and their father. The youngest of these children, and it could be two young daughters and their mother, or a mother and two sons, or a father and two daughters. And I'd love to change the gender of this story, but it's too much work. I'd begin to talk about the son and meeting the daughter, and you get all thrown off. So no need to do that at this point. Anyway, the Bible story is about two young boys and their father. The youngest of these young boys wants to have part of his fortune that the father will give him eventually, given to him, so he can go away and live it up in a faraway country. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it, in some cases? The father is willing to give him the money, and he does, and he, of course, winds up feeding swine because he has spent all the money in the far country. He even eats some of the husks that that he's feeding the swine because he's so poor, so deprived, so impoverished. Finally, it dawns on him, as it does all of us, if he would turn around and go back to his father's house, ask for forgiveness, and agree to be one of the servants in his father's house, at least he'd have the bare necessities. Now remember that. He wants to go back, ask forgiveness, and become a servant. So he goes back, starts back. When he's a ways from the house, his darling father greets him, comes to greet him. And now we are going to find out what will make us free, because I'm going to show you in this story how forgiveness frees us up. The lesson will be free at last. We can forgive and be free. Two parts of forgiveness are illustrated when the boy meets his father on the road. Apparently, between the time he left his place of employment in the far country and the meeting of his father, he has come to the notion that he can forgive himself, that he can get himself a good dose of self-forgiveness, which is something we have to learn very early on in the game. Because remember, what you see is what you are. And if you're always being unforgiving, if you're always condemning and damning, it's because you haven't forgiven yourself. Once you learn to forgive yourself, you can forgive others very easily because you know that you've forgiven yourself. So when he meets his father, being a servant in the house is never mentioned. He just asks his father for forgiveness and that he wants to become part of the family again. Now, let's take a look at the father. The father isn't in the slightest interested in forgiving the son. He isn't the slightest interested in condemning that son. He never even mentions anything about, what did you do with the money? How come you're so poor? You know, he doesn't make any condemning remarks. He simply greets the boy, puts new clothing on his back, and prepares a feast for him. Think of the freedom this father has, not needing to forgive, because he doesn't see the need to forgive. Well, there's a party going on, and you remember there were two boys. There's one boy that stays home. The father notices that the boy that stays home is not at the party, so he goes out and tries to find him, and he does. And of course, the boy that stays home is full of remorse, self-pity. How come he gets what I, should have? How come my father never did this for me? What necessity was it? The boy was always home. Anyway, the father asks him to join the party. This young chap is so unforgiving, so remorseful, so jealous, so envious, that he doesn't even refer to the son that returned home as his brother. He refers to him as your son. Think how harsh. Now let's consider what this unforgiveness is doing in just this little story in the Bible. Because this story is very short, it's only about 21 verses long, and as Bible stories go, that's kind of short. He deprives himself of a party, and he deprives himself of enjoying the inheritance he already has in his father's house, because he can't recognize it, he can't see it, he can't appreciate it. He can't feel grateful. He can't feel grateful that his brother is safe and sound and coming home, all because he can't be forgiven. Charles Fillmore tells us we should never go to sleep at night until we forgive all those who have anything against us, or that we have anything against them. But more important, remember, when Jesus made the Lord's Prayer, one of the points in the Lord's Prayer is forgive us our debts as we have forgiven our debtors. Forgiveness is so important that he included this in the prayer that is said to cover all our essential needs. Now, Jesus never wasted time telling us things to do that were unimportant. So if he said, forgive us our debts, and made that something that we are to stay, for some of us, it's daily, think how important forgiveness is. If Charles Fillmore tells us to forgive, and to go to bed, not to go to bed at night without forgiving, think how important it is. I would tell you that it's so important to forgive. Forgive is the thing that frees you up. It lets you know a certain sense of freedom that you can get no other way. God wants you to forgive. God doesn't have any need to forgive us because he can't. We should all really try to develop the spirit of the Father in this story, who doesn't see any need to condemn. Think how important it is. Think how freeing that is. Think of the burden that you take off your shoulders when you know that there's really no need to forgive. But if there is a need,